The Legacy of Sycamore Springs, presented by Troop 4025 of Georgetown, Indiana, as told by Miss Nidra Robinson Dial. Tell us about the beginning of the park.
Yes, my father retired from the railroad in 1945 and moved here. He bought 135 acres, $100 down and $100 a year for 12 years, and he faded off in 1945, and we moved here. Managed to make a living by farming, which was very difficult, and we used two old horses called Sam and Dan. Later years, he had a tractor, a John Deere tractor in 1929, but he died in 1960. From 1960 to 1997, this all grew up. It was almost like the woods that you see back there. I mean, it was just total. That's 37 years of growth. That's twice your guys' age. So it was a lot of growth. So when we started the park, our first year was in 1990. We incorporated in 96, and we started the park in 97. You could only get over the hill the first year. We did allow people to hike. That was all we had the first year here.
So the park started with 135 acres. When did you purchase the additional 115, and are there any plans for more growth as the park grows?
Good question. We started with 135 acres. Within the first year, we purchased the land across the road down to the creek.
Yeah.
And we also purchased 35 acres down where the chapel now stands. The park actually owns another 149 acres across the creek right now.
Yeah.
And they own another small piece of land. And when I die, they will inherit most of the land that is across the creek, because we have no plans for expansion as far as RVs. We might do, it would lend itself to horses over there. There's a lot of different things it could be used for, but primarily it was bought to protect the park, so there'd be no hunting while we have guests here, and nothing would be going on. But yes, and every year we try to add something, even if, sometimes it's just another playground, and as you know, there's plenty of those. But that's by design, okay?
Can you tell us about the staff here and what they do for the camp?
The staff? This park would not be here without some of our people. Mike Riddle, who's in charge of the grounds, there's no way we could have done what we've done without Mike Riddle. Ruth King, she's been here since 2010. She's out right now having cancer treatments. She's responsible for the flowers, she's responsible for signs, she can work the office, she can work outside. We've had a number of those people during the year. Steve is rather new. The gal that was out here, Carol has been here now 4 years, and she is our media person, and she's our person who does our marketing and our shop. She does the shop too. And really and truly, the family, we're too old. We have to have all these people to help, a great deal.
How long have you worked at the park?
Just a little over 2 years. I started in April of 2022.
What's your role at the park?
I'm the two titles. I'm executive director of the board, and I'm also park manager.
And what would you say is the main reason you wanted to work here?
Well, I was looking for a job that was quite flexible, actually, and I'm part of the family. I wanted to continue in the family, so actually, my wife's related to Nidra, who you interviewed yesterday.
So, how does it feel being staff here?
I really enjoy it because I like people, and so I love talking to people, and the park is beautiful, and it's just a great place to work.
Why did you decide to start working here?
Well, I retired after 15 years of a job in Lanesville, so I just wanted to really get closer to home and do less hours.
Where's your favorite place in the park?
My favorite place would probably be the creek. It's cool, it's shady, and you can put your feet in the water, relax.
What's your favorite part of working here?
The people. I am a people person, and I enjoy meeting new people and where they've been and what they've done and why they're
You
here.
decided to work here in Sycamore Springs Park.
Well, I decided to work here because I can work here part-time. I've worked full-time all my life, and now at my age, I'm getting too old to weed eat, and here I can work a day, 2 days, 3 days, and it's very accommodating to me and to them, so it works out great.
What are some of your duties here at the camp?
We have a grid, so we know who's leaving at a certain time and who's coming in. So we go and we check all the trash, the people that are leaving, make sure it's nice and clean for the people that are arriving. And then once the people arrive, we go around and we give them all of their paperwork that they need to sign in. And that's basically a full day here, outside of rescuing raccoons out of the dumpsters and picking up tree limbs and rocks and stuff like that. On occasions, we get to paint and clean playground equipment. We have a chapel here, and we have a lot of weddings on the weekends, so we keep that nice and clean and get it ready for the weddings, and then clean up after the weddings. But for the most part, we just all work together to try to keep it as clean as we can.
How long have you been working here?
I worked here several years ago for a short period of time, and then I moved away. When I moved back home, I decided to give them a call and ask them if they were needing any help, and of course they were, so I came back. And I've been here just this year. I just moved back maybe 5 months ago.
How do you like it here?
I love it. I love it.
Anything specific that you love the most about it?
My coworkers are great. I have the best boss in the world, and just the nature in general.
Can you tell us where all the springs are located throughout the park?
You know, we call it Sycamore Springs Park. Springs. There's more than one spring. There's a lot of springs. This Clayton's Pond right down here, there's a spring. We used to raise molasses and cook off sorghum, and we did it there by that spring. The Deer Lake, there's a spring that feeds Deer Lake. This pond also gets runoff, which we would prefer it not to. There's a pond across the road up here, that's a spring. There's one on top of the hill, if you've been up there, that's a spring. As a gift to me, years ago, Carol Groves and her brother Gary Robertson, and I think they had a John Benton with them. Yep. They surprised me, and they mapped this cave. They went in the cave, and I'm going to tell you where it is so you can peek in. But you have to promise not to go in. I don't think you can get in. I think you're all too, well, he might get in. Anyway, you want to tell them what you saw when you went in there?
Well, it's not a cave you walk in. It's a cave you crawl in from the beginning to the end. But basically, we crawled in, what I believe she's going to point out to you, and then you could crawl over to the spring and see daylight, and you were in water, but you couldn't get out there. It's just too low. But the most interesting thing in my mind, there was a little bit of trash. I mean, the family had brought something in. There were some names on the ceiling. But the interesting thing was there's bear beds from black bears, which are native here. Bear wallows is what we call them, you know, where just like a dog turns around and around and around to get comfortable. Well, there's places in the cave where the bear turned around and around. And those are distinctive, and they're not super uncommon in caves, but kind of rare. So anyway, we made a map of the cave, and it was exciting to us because usually people don't get excited if you map their cave. And Nidra and the family was very excited, and they framed it. I don't know if I've ever had a map. I was on a survey crew that got framed and hung up where people could see it, so that was cool to us.
I actually made one for each member of my family.
Yeah, so we were excited about that.
Wow. Tell them what was back there and where that ended approximately, do you know? And they found the initials DR back there, and I had a brother named Dale Robertson, and they thought it was him, and he says, no, I was too big a chicken. But we had a cousin, David, that was not a chicken. We're sure that was David's initials. I'll tell you now where to look for it. If you go, you know where Bee's Hive is? Everybody knows where Bee's Hive is? Down by Sleepy Hollow. Down in front of Bee's Hive, there's a road there, there's a parking lot. walk straight out through that parking lot up to the hill, and you'll see some huge rocks laying this way. And in behind there is the stream, is the water from the spring. The little stream that runs by Bee's Hive is the water from the spring. We've taken it underground. And I drank that water as a kid. We'd walk there and get our drinking water. And you had to go real quiet, because if a frog jumped in, you had to wait for the water to clear before you could take your water back to drink. If I brought home dirty water, Mom sent us back. But that's what we
Tell
actually
us about
drank.
the like original neighbors from when you first bought here. Like,
Yeah. There is a family, and their relatives are still here, by the name of Mary, M-E-R-Y, and we call this pond Mary's Pond up here across, because that joins their land. We have actually bought part of their land now. So that Mary family was here, and it was an old family, and you'll see them in the cemetery. Most of my relatives were related. They were Robertsons. Down below where the chapel is now was a family called Moore, but the lady was a Dimbo, and the Robertsons and Dimbos are intermarried throughout, so that was also owned by, and this farm was originally owned by one of the Dimbos. You actually have to go several miles. When we moved here, you'd have to go to the top of the hill to find people that weren't related to us, or quite a ways out that way. Because my uncle up there had 600 acres. Okay, we're in the Hamilton Cemetery that really is named the Hamilton Robertson Cemetery, but the sign says Hamilton. Okay.
Would you please tell us about your family that got buried in this graveyard?
Okay, most of these, as you see, a lot of Robertsons are up here. The Dimbos that you see scattered down there are also relatives. I think there's a Goldman in here that's a relative. And almost all the others, without exception, are neighbors or people who were neighbors. There's not very many funerals here. But we are still burying here. And the latest stone was this one, which was put in by my brother, who lives in Phoenix. He planned to be brought back here.
Could you tell us about a family member that escaped Andersonville?
Yeah. This tombstone here is my great-great-grandfather. Now, I am 84 years old. I'll be 85 this fall. And he's my great-great-grandfather. So we're talking Civil War. And he was in the Andersonville, Georgia. There was more than one Andersonville prison, by the way. That actually it was Camp Sumner became called the Andersonville prison in Georgia. And they know there were 32 escaped from Andersonville that returned to their troops. But they know there were 351 that disappeared. Now, some were killed on the way home. We're assuming my great-grandfather was one of those, because the story is, and everyone swore by it all my life, that he dug his way out with a spoon, he and another prisoner, and then the other prisoner was afraid to leave, and that he worked his way back up and came home. And it was near the end of the war. They weren't trying to find deserters, nothing. It's online. We got a copy of his honorable discharge. He got an honorable discharge, yeah. And that would be him. Notice he's married to Mary. Mary was a Dimbo. So they're really interrelated. There are several stones here with nobody buried in them. For instance, Johnny Mary is buried down at Doolittle Mills because he remarried and his new wife did not want him buried by his old wife. That kind of thing. Okay.
Tell us more about the families that lived around here and that are buried in the cemetery.
Most all of them were farmers. There are, well, you see the flags. There are quite a few veterans that are buried here. This is, of course, the oldest section, and you can see how the stones are. We have been trying to find some stones that we know are here, like the baby that started the cemetery, because they donated the land. And I did get a February the 12th, 1881. I did get a handwritten copy of a deed that includes this. And there's one here who was really into ham radio. Yeah. And they have every year, last weekend they were here actually. They set up in the park and they talk, and anybody that wants to can come talk to anybody in the world that's on a ham radio. While they're here 24 hours. They go night and day, and they're Jack Shack. And So he started it, and he had learned how to be a ham radio from my brother. And he really wanted to be buried here. So he is buried here in a place for his wife and daughter also. So that's good. Really and truly, they were almost everybody here was a very poor family. The Robertsons had a lot of teachers in them. That didn't mean they were wealthy. But most of them were farmers.
Could you give us the history of the spiral staircase?
Yes. My husband was a strange person. He was watching them change the locks in the dams on the Ohio River. A few years ago, they reduced the number of locks, remember? And he realized that that spiral staircase was probably about what he needed to go up that hill back there. So he was able to buy a spiral staircase. Now the bridge was the part of the crane that they used to use to go out and repair. And he took pieces of that, and we hired a professional welder and welded them together and made the bridge, the actual bridge up there. And of course it's inspected every year, and it does shake when you go up. That's part of the fun of it. We actually built it in the field down there. The welders worked in the field. And then we contracted with a firm out of Indianapolis. We poured, if you notice, the bridge sits on two concrete pillars up there. We had poured those, and he brought his equipment in, and some of your fathers may work with that kind of equipment. He had a TV screen, and he sat down below and watched in the screen, and he picked it up and set it on those pillows without ever touching a tree or anything. Amazing that he could do that. And of course, he gets well paid for that. Getting that bridge up there, just setting the bridge, was $8,800. But we couldn't have done it without that piece of equipment. And a really skilled man that knew how to do it. It's really interesting. But anyway, I would never have thought of making a bridge out of a piece of a crane, but he did. And he actually had to cut off the stairway a little bit. We needed to do it with the steps like we did at the top, so he had to cut it a little bit. But it worked pretty good. It's been there for several years now.
Where did the bridge over the Little Blue in the back come from?
I had another brother who was a construction person, and he worked for large construction companies, and he did bridge work in Boardwalk. And then he realized that a bridge he was looking at was going to have to come out. So he stopped and he talked to the person in charge, and the guy told him that they were going to sell it for scrap for $36,000. And he said, suppose that the park gave you a donation slip for $36,000, would you give it to us? And he said, well, I have to make sure that the person who was doing it knew what they were doing. They'd have the people here on the very day, the equipment here on the very day that I need it moved, and then I'd have to also ask somebody higher up. But they agreed to it because they checked with him and they knew that's what he'd been doing. And so he watched it faithfully, and when they were ready, he went in, took the bridge, and moved it.
Can you tell us about the bridge at the front of the park?
Behind the chapel, okay. That bridge was in Walton, Indiana. And Walton is not an island, but it's situated that you can't get to Alton, Indiana without crossing a bridge. It's over 100 years old. And they could not tear it down. It was a historic bridge. And they couldn't build a new one until they tore it, until they moved it. So it was a real problem. They couldn't get anybody to take it, to buy the bridge. Finally, the county got a grant of over $700,000, and they put a couple $100,000 with it, and asked us if we would take the bridge and maintain it for 25 years. Well, we felt like if they brought it in here, that was the least we could do. It cannot be used by trucks or cars anymore. That was part of the thing. That's why there's a pillow up between it, so you can't drive anything bigger than a golf cart across it. And they actually took it apart, threw away the flooring, brought it here in pieces, painted it, and put it back together again. And they provided all that. If you look down at the side where all the stones are, they provided all that concrete work and all that laying of those stones. They did everything.
What's still on the foundation of the chapel before the chapel did?
Okay, there was a house there, and we thought we'd build a small chapel, a wedding chapel, and just build it on the basement of the house. However, the same husband, I only had one, the same husband found that Fort Knox was tearing down the Executives Club. And they had beautiful, and that's why I mentioned the chapel, they had beautiful beams and ceiling that they sold for $1,000. Trouble was, it was bigger than the basement, so we had to make the chapel bigger. And it's really a pretty chapel inside. We do use it for things besides weddings, but it's primarily a wedding chapel. Any other questions?
Could you please tell me about the tractor behind you?
This tractor does have an interesting story. A John Deere of that age you could hear all over the community because they made so much noise. Bang, 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 boom, bang, bang, boom. You could hear it all over the community when you ran it. And it had lugs on it. We've taken the lugs off and put tires on it. The reason it isn't open for the public yet, we're planning to put shelves in there and show the old lugs. We want to show what it looked like originally. My brother, when my dad died, my mom was really poor, my brother sold it for $50. After we started the park, we began to hunt for it, and we did find it, and we knew it was ours because when Dad had it, it only had one fender, and it'd throw mud up on him from the lugs. The lugs go down and throw the mud up on him. So he made a fender out of a bridge sign to catch the mud. When we found the tractor, it still had the bridge sign on it, so we knew we had the right tractor. And that's what you
Why did you start the park?
We wanted to give back to the community. We'd been very successful. We were hotel people. We bought and sold and owned and operated hotels. And we thought we were retiring. This is my idea of retirement. And Crawford County had no parks. We had no parks. We had a little place up on Highland Overlook that was absolutely a shame. I wouldn't even call it a park, and it was just maybe 3 acres up there with outdoor restrooms. It was nothing up there, no playground, nothing. And then of course Patoka had started by that time, but they were just getting started. So there was no park, no place to go. If we wanted a family thing, we had to go to Spring Mill or somewhere else. So we wanted a place where people could come in free and stay free with the playgrounds, the shelter houses, and the only thing that then we do charge for is the camping and the chapel. If you ever want to do real rough camping, I own a piece of land that goes way up. There's a cabin up there, no water. You have to use a generator for electricity. Very limited septic up there. But it's really a neat cabin. It sits on the edge of the bluff and you can see all over the whole area. It's beyond the park, but I did it because a lot of that land is very close to the park.
So, what is your favorite part or most joyous part about the park to you?
I haven't really thought about it too much. Of course, I like the cemetery because it's so old. I think probably the area back by the bluffs, because when I was a kid, that did not belong to my father. That was not part of the 135 acres. But the man who owned it owned all the land on the other side of the river. I think he had like 500 acres or something, and he owned that piece of land. And he wanted Dad to cut his timber. My father had a sawmill. And so he put his sawmill in that field there by the Bluffs shelter house and was there for a number of years. And as kids, we played in those fields. We think there's a cave back there that lets cold air out because there's almost always a breeze back there. And in the spring, that's a huge waterfall. Yeah, the pavilion really benefits. And when we were looking to buy that piece of land, that was again something that had to be bought. They owned that little cabin across that bridge. You know, if you've seen Manny and Bud cabin. And so we had to buy the cabin in order to get that. We didn't really want that cabin. But now that cabin is a fully furnished cabin that we rent. The park is endowed in such a way that if costs do not go up too much, I mean, of course, as costs go up, our camping charges go up too. And so it probably would take care of it. This park can go on for years and years and years. Right now, there's a shortfall each year, which I make up. When I die, the trust will make that up. And it should go on and be a good park for many, many, many years. We do donations, and we have several people who donate good sums of money to help us, and that's how we've gotten the blacktop that we've gotten. And we're hoping to do another big section from Riddle House on up the hill to the other bathroom next year. So, but no, it should be able to go ahead and survive. But who knows what's going to happen, you know? But if it has to be sold, the money goes to charity. Nobody benefits except charity. Okay, and the charity is the Community Foundation of Crawford County. Okay.
On behalf of Troop 4025, we thank you very, very much.
You're
Right,
welcome.
boys?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.